Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating subject, how the traditional garments of Eastern Sri Lankan Muslims actually map out centuries of trade, religion, war, and migration. You know, we usually think of clothes just in terms of fashion, changing tastes, or, well, basic utility to keep us warm. But today, we're going to look at them as rich historical archives. We'll uncover how the threads worn by this specific community weave together an incredibly complex and beautiful story of their identity. It's all about how they preserve their past while navigating the modern world.
So what can a single thread really tell us about a society's history? Well, to figure that out, we have to look at clothing as a semiotic field. Now that sounds a bit academic, but it's basically just a network of meaningful symbols. It means every single sartorial choice you make is packed with historical and cultural data. For the Muslims of Eastern Sri Lanka, throwing on an outfit goes way beyond just covering up. Choosing a plain white cotton sarong instead of a gold-threaded silk one, that's not just about what looks good in the mirror. It's a direct, intentional communication of profound moral, religious, and social messages. It instantly signals who you are, exactly where you come from, and what values you hold dear.
Section 1. A Tapestry of Cultures, the Roots of Eastern Muslim Attire. Okay, let's unpack this dynamic blend of cultural influences. First, we really have to look at Islamic piety, because it serves as the absolute foundation of this community's clothing culture. The culture is this incredible tapestry woven from ancient Arab and Persian heritage, indigenous Tamil traditions, South Indian connections, and even European colonial impacts. But anchoring the whole shebang is the concept of era. This is the Islamic principle that outlines the specific parts of the body that must be modestly covered. For men, that's generally from the navel to the knee, and for women, it typically covers the entire body except the face and hands. Throughout history, whether a woman was wearing a highly decorated handloom sari or a modern black abaya, this underlying blueprint was always dictating the shape and drape of the garment. It's all about that strict observance of religious modesty.
Section 2. Evolution of the sarong, the canvas of men's attire.
Let's zero in on everyday menswear in the region, specifically the sarong, or as it's known in the local dialect, the saran. Now, this isn't just your standard everyday wear. This tubular, handloom garment has a seriously rich backstory. Originally, men in the region wore unstitched doies, but then ancient maritime trade routes brought these transformative new influences straight to the shores of Sri Lanka. We're talking traders from Southeast Asia and India introducing garments like the Malay Lungi and the Erdo Kali. Over time, these evolved into the stitched tubular sarong we see today, and it caught on because it was just so practical. In fact, farmers and fishermen even developed this really ingenious way to tie it, folding it up tightly for rigorous physical labor. Locally, that style is known as sarapatai.
Now here's where it gets really fascinating. The actual material of the garment itself is doing a lot of the talking. You have the deep piety of plain white cotton contrasting sharply against the worldly status of gold threads. A pristine white sarong is typically worn for Friday Juma prayers at the mosque because it symbolizes ascetic humility and purity. It removes visual distractions in a place of worship. But on the flip side, you have the Banara silk sarong. Distinguished by its gold borders, this symbolized immense wealth and high social status. However, Muslim men generally avoided pure silk for religious reasons, so instead, they preferred high-quality cotton variants that skillfully mimicked that elite status without breaking any strict religious boundaries. Pretty clever, right?
What's truly wild is how global geography literally wove itself into local wardrobes through trade. The origins of these historic sarong variations tell this sweeping international story. You've got the local Maritime sarong, which is famous for its deep, dark colors and longitudinal stripes. But then there's the Aramani, which heavily reflects ancient trade connections with Burma and features multiple colors. And think about the Palgat sarong, originating from Palaverkado in India. That was actually introduced during the Dutch colonial era, bringing in entirely new, diverse patterns. Literally, every single time a man tied one of these sarongs, he was wearing a map of global maritime trade right on his waist.
Section 3. From sari to abaya, the transformation of women's attire.
All right, let's shift gears and look at the sweeping historical changes in women's attire in Eastern Sri Lanka. We're talking a major transition from incredibly colorful handloom drapes to the modern black silhouettes we see most commonly today. For generations, the quintessential marker of Eastern Muslim womanhood was the beautifully draped sari. But, and this is key, it wasn't worn just like any other sari in South Asia. It was manipulated perfectly to fulfill Islamic modesty laws. Women would drape the fabric uniquely across their chest and, crucially, pull the end piece, the palu, over their heads to completely cover their hair. That fulfills the requirements of the hijab. They achieved complete, beautiful modesty using traditional, local garments long before the modern Middle Eastern abaya was ever introduced to the area.
Before the modern era, women wore these highly tactile, vibrant garments that carried immense cultural weight. It absolutely wasn't about wearing a single uniform style. This sheer variety was astounding. They wore the kambai, which was this thick, durable cotton imported directly from the port of Kambat in Gujarat, India. Then there was the soman, an elaborate 9 to 12-yard cloth so luxuriously long it was historically worn without inner blouses. You had the pachavadam, a really distinctive heavy dark red garment. And of course, the magnificent Kanchipuram silk, heavily threaded with real gold, which was strictly reserved for brides to wear on their wedding day.
But, culture is never static, and massive geopolitical events can rewrite the rules of fashion almost overnight. Prior to the 1980s, the traditional salman and colorful saris totally dominated daily life. But then, the tragic regional civil war in the 1980s caused severe disruptions to local agriculture and the economy. This harsh reality forced a lot of women from Eastern Sri Lanka to migrate to the Middle East for work. When these women finally returned to their homeland in the 1990s, they brought back the Gulf-style abaya. It offered a highly practical, modern alternative for everyday wear. Today, those loose black abayas and square hijabs have largely replaced the complex, multi-yard sari for daily, practical use among the younger generations.
Section 4. Meaning in the threads, craftsmanship, and legacy.
To truly grasp the depth of this cultural tapestry, we have to look past the historical timelines for a second and examine the craftsmanship itself, along with the raw human emotions tied up in these textiles. This is beautifully captured in the oral history of the region. Take this translated lyric from a local folk song. I bought a highly respected milk-white Solman sari for you. Why are you still sad, my beautiful girl? A woven cloth wasn't just a basic purchase at the market. It was a profound symbol of love, status, and deep care. Buying a highly respected garment for a loved one was a massive gesture of devotion. These garments were deeply embedded in the romantic and family lives of the community, literally woven inextricably into their poetry and their songs.
And that incredible legacy, it continues today through the resilient local artisans. The physical act of weaving in Eastern hubs like Marthumanai and Katankudi isn't just a job. It's a living, breathing ancestral memory. For generations, weaving and tailoring have acted as a vital cottage industry here, sustaining entire families and communities. And what's truly inspiring is that this isn't some dying art fading into the past. It's continuously adapting. Today, local weavers are appealing to modern youth tastes by creating brilliantly embroidered handloom sarongs, ensuring that with every single stitch, centuries of cultural memory are preserved, honored, and carried forward into our modern world.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. If our clothing acts as a semiotic field, a beautifully complex map that perfectly traces our history, our international trade, our struggles, and our deeply held values, then what will the garments of tomorrow reveal about the cultural shifts happening in our world right now? If our clothes are a canvas of our past, what stories are we weaving right now for the future? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the threads of identity. Keep questioning the everyday things around you, because as we've seen today, even a simple piece of cloth holds a universe of history.